They picked bedrooms, hired movers, and announced they'd be moving into my $515,000 lake house without asking. My sister stood there smiling, our parents nodding approval, her 3 kids already fighting over who'd get the room with the best view. They'd planned everything behind my back, assuming I'd cave like I always did. I smiled back, then unsealed the demolition permits I'd filed months ago. They thought family meant free housing. They were about to learn what boundaries looked like when enforced with a wrecking ball. My name is Kendall Rain, and at 39, I'd built the life I wanted, not the one my family expected. As an independent architect, I'd spent 15 years climbing from drafting tables to running my own firm, specializing in lakefront properties. The irony wasn't lost on me that I designed dream homes for others, while mine sat empty most weekends. It was a sanctuary from the chaos of my family's perpetual crises. That Sunday started like every other monthly dinner, at my parents' colonial in Westchester. Mom's pot roast filled the air with rosemary and false comfort. I arrived precisely at 6, clutching a bottle of wine I knew Dad would criticize for being too fancy. Through the dining room window, I could see my sister Savannah's minivan parked crooked in the driveway, one tire crushing Mom's prized hostas. Aunt Kendall. 3 voices erupted as I entered. Mason, 8, launched himself at my knees while the twins, Lily and Luna, 6, grabbed each hand. Their energy always caught me off guard. Pure chaos wrapped in sticky fingers and gap-toothed grins. Careful with Aunt Kendall's clothes, Savannah called from the kitchen, not looking up from her phone. Those probably cost more than our mortgage payment. I bit back my usual response. After all, whose fault was it that their mortgage was underwater? Not mine, though I'd been asked to co-sign 3 times. Brian, my brother-in-law, offered his trademark weak handshake and weaker smile. Kendall, you look professional. It's Sunday, Brian. I'm wearing jeans. Dad emerged from his study, bourbon already in hand. There's our career woman. Still no ring, I see. Still no retirement fund, I see, I muttered under my breath, settling into my designated chair, the wobbly one they never fixed, despite my offers to replace the entire set. Dinner unfolded with its usual choreography. Mom fussed over Savannah's exhaustion from managing 3 kids, though I'd seen her Instagram stories from her spa day yesterday. Dad regaled us with complaints about his boss, 20 years running at the same company he claimed to hate. Brian picked at his food while the kids created abstract art with mashed potatoes. I was calculating how soon I could politely leave when Savannah clinked her fork against her glass. The gesture was so unlike her, too formal, too planned, that my stomach tightened. We have an announcement, she beamed, reaching for Brian's hand. He looked like he might vomit. Kids, tell Aunt Kendall the exciting news. Mason bounced in his seat. We are moving to the Lakehouse. I get the blue room. No, I get the blue room, Luna protested. You said I could have it. Girls get the Princess Tower room, Lily added with authority. The words hit me in waves. Lakehouse. My Lakehouse. The blue room. My guest suite. The Princess Tower. My converted attic studio where I sketched on weekends. I'm sorry. What? My voice came out steady, but my hand trembled as I set down my wine glass. Savannah's smile widened. Isn't it perfect? We've been cramped in that rental for so long, and your place has all that space just sitting empty. Mom helped us figure it all out. Mom nodded enthusiastically. 5 bedrooms for 1 person never made sense. Dear family helps family. We already called the moving company. Savannah continued scrolling through her phone. Next Saturday. Oh, and Brian's brother has a truck for the big stuff. We figured we'd take the master suite since we are a couple, and you could move to the smaller room by the stairs. More convenient for when you work late. She said it all so casually, like discussing restaurant plans, like she hadn't just rearranged my entire life without asking, like my $515,000 investment was communal property. Savannah, I started. I know you're worried about the kids making a mess, but they are older now. So much more careful. Aren't you, babies? The children nodded solemnly, though Mason had literally just spilled juice on Mom's tablecloth. We'll chip in for utilities, Brian added quietly. When we can. When we can, had been the same promise from when I'd covered their car repairs, their broken refrigerator, Savannah's emergency root canal. When we can, had never materialized into actual payment. Dad leaned back, satisfied. See, all worked out. Family takes care of each other. Kendall, you've been blessed with success. Time to share those blessings. Blessed, as if my success had fallen from the sky instead of being clawed from 70-hour weeks, rejected proposals, and clients who thought female architects were secretaries who'd gotten confused. Did you measure the rooms? I asked Savannah. Last month when you gave me the key to water your plants, I took photos for furniture placement. Look, she thrust her phone at me. There they were. My rooms photographed and annotated. Master SNB, Blue Mason, Tower Girls, Office Playroom. Even my home gym was labeled Storage Brian's Workspace. You planned this last month. Well, we had to be sure everything would fit. Oh, and Mom found the most adorable curtains for the girls' room, Frozen themed. Mom pulled up her own phone. On sale at Home Goods. I bought 3 sets. They'd bought curtains for my house, the house I designed myself, where every detail from crown molding to doorknobs reflected hours of decision-making. My sanctuary was being transformed into a suburban daycare while I sat there like a guest at my own wake. The schools out there are incredible, Savannah continued. We've already started the transfer paperwork. Mason's so excited about the science program. Transfer paperwork, not applications or inquiries. Paperwork. The lease on our place is up next month anyway, Brian added. Honestly, you're saving us, Kendall. We were looking at having to move in with Brian's mother. The implied threat hung there, take us in, or we'll suffer elsewhere, and it'll be your fault. Classic Savannah emotional manipulation wrapped in logistics. I looked around the table. Mom nodded encouragingly. Dad had already returned to his bourbon. Matter settled. The kids were drawing on napkins, probably sketching their new rooms, my rooms, and Savannah. She was already moving on, discussing paint colors with Mom. Nothing too drastic. Maybe just lighten up those dark walls. Kendall, choose more kid-friendly. Kid-friendly. My careful palette of slate blues and warm grays. Chosen to complement the lake views. Dismissed as unsuitable, my home, my investment, my refuge, reduced to free housing for a sister who'd never respected a boundary in her life. I reached for my purse, pulling out a manila folder I'd been carrying for 2 months. The weight of it felt prophetic now. Before you get too deep into paint samples, I said, placing the folder on the table with deliberate calm. There's something you should know about the house. The folder made a soft thud against Mom's good tablecloth. For a moment, nobody moved. Savannah's hand froze mid-gesture, her phone still displaying paint swatches. The kids continued coloring, oblivious to the shift in atmosphere. What's that supposed to be? Savannah's voice carried an edge of irritation, like I'd interrupted something important with trivial paperwork. I opened the folder slowly, revealing the architectural blueprints, permits, and contracts within. The top sheet bore the official seal of the County Planning Department. Renovation plans, I said, spreading the papers across the table. Approved last month. Work starts Tuesday. Mom leaned forward, squinting at the technical drawings. Renovation. You didn't mention any renovation. A 9-month project, complete structural overhaul. The house will be stripped down to studs in most areas. I pulled out the contractor's timeline. Each phase color-coded and detailed. New electrical, plumbing, HVAC, the kitchen, and all bathrooms are being gutted. I'm adding a second story to the west wing. Savannah snatched the timeline from my hands. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. The contractors have already purchased materials. The dumpster arrives Monday morning. But we are moving in Saturday, she said, her voice pitched higher, causing the twins to look up from their drawings. No, I said calmly. You're not. Dad set down his bourbon with enough force to rattle the ice. Kendall Marie, what kind of game are you playing? No game. I've been planning this renovation for over a year. Saved specifically for it. The house needs updating. The electrical is from the 80s. The foundation has settling issues, and the septic system needs replacement. I pulled out the inspection report. See, all documented. It's not safe for occupancy during construction. Brian found his voice. Can't you postpone? We have nowhere else to go. The contracts are signed. Workers have been scheduled. Delaying would cost me thousands in penalties and push the project into winter, which would add months and possibly compromise the foundation work. This is ridiculous, Savannah said, standing, her chair scraping against the floor. You're making this up to spite us. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos I'd taken 2 weeks ago. Here's the delivered lumber stacked in the garage. Here's the new kitchen cabinets in storage. Here's the meeting with my contractor and the civil engineer about the addition's footprint. Mom studied the photos, her face cycling through confusion, disappointment, and something that looked almost like embarrassment. You knew we were planning. Why didn't you say something? When was I supposed to say something about my own house during the secret measuring sessions while you were buying curtains? Or should I have intuited that my property had been reassigned without my knowledge? It's not like that, Savannah protested. We are family. Yes, we are. Which is why I'm telling you now before you've given notice on your rental, or disrupted the kids' schooling. I gestured to the children, who were watching us with wide eyes. This gives you a month to find appropriate housing. Appropriate housing. Savannah's laugh was bitter. Do you know what rent costs? Everything's gone up except Brian's salary. Brian flinched but said nothing. I'd learned long ago that defending him only made things worse. I designed a house that reflects my success, I said. That success came from focus, sacrifice, and yes, boundaries. I worked through holidays, lost relationships, and reinvested everything back into my business. I didn't do that so others could claim the rewards. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You ungrateful, we raised you better than this. Family shares, family sacrifices. I've shared plenty. I pulled out another document, a spreadsheet I'd never planned to show them. $11,000 over the past 5 years. Car repairs, medical bills, Christmas gifts when things were tight. Never once repaid. I've sacrificed plenty. Savannah stared at the numbers, her face paling. You kept track like we are some kind of charity case. I kept track because I'm a business owner. Also, because every time I helped, I was promised it would be paid back when things improved. Things never improved because there were no consequences for poor planning. Poor planning. Brian finally erupted. The economy tanked. My industry got decimated. You think we wanted to struggle? No, Mom said, her voice surprisingly firm. But you also didn't want to adapt. You've been waiting for your old job to magically reappear for 3 years instead of retraining or relocating. Mom reached for the renovation plans, studying them more carefully. This must cost a fortune. $190,000, I replied, my fortune earned by my work for my home. You'd rather spend that on granite countertops than help your sister's children have stability. Dad's question hung in the air like an accusation. Mason chose that moment to pipe up. Are we not moving to the Lakehouse? Savannah rushed to his side. We are discussing it, baby. But you said I could have the blue room, you promised. His lower lip trembled. I know, sweetie. Aunt Kendall is just being difficult. I'm being clear, I corrected. The house will be a construction zone. Exposed wiring, no functioning bathrooms for weeks at a time, potentially hazardous materials during the asbestos remediation. Would you want your children living in that? The architect in me couldn't help pulling out the hazard assessments. Lead paint removal planned for week 3, septic replacement, weeks 5 through 7, no functioning toilets. Would you have your daughters using porta potties in December? Lily wrinkled her nose. Oh, porta potties. See? I appealed to Savannah's maternal instincts. It's genuinely unsafe. This isn't about spite. It's about reality. The reality, Savannah hissed, is that you have a massive house you barely use while we are drowning. But sure, upgrade your already perfect kitchen while my kids share a bedroom. Your children sharing a bedroom isn't my responsibility to solve. No, nothing's ever your responsibility, is it? Must be nice up there in your lakefront tower, looking down on the rest of us peasants who made the mistake of having families. The words stung, but not as much as they once would have. I made different choices, I said. Those choices led to different outcomes. That's not selfishness, that's life. Mom started crying quiet, manipulative tears that had worked on me for decades. I just wanted my girls to be close again, living near each other, helping each other like a real family. We are a real family, I stated, but real families respect boundaries and honor each other's autonomy. They don't ambush each other with life-changing demands disguised as fait accompli announcements. I gathered the papers back into the folder, my hands steady now. The renovation starts Tuesday. I've arranged to stay in a temporary rental during the major construction phases. The house will be beautiful when it's done, and it will remain my house. Savannah grabbed my wrist as I stood to leave. You're really going to do this? Make us homeless? To prove a point, I gently removed her hand. You're not homeless. You have a rental with a month remaining to find new housing. That's more notice than you gave me about your moving plans. The room erupted as I walked toward the door. Dad shouting about lawyers and inheritance. Mom wailing about where she went wrong. Savannah screaming that I'd ruined everything. The kids crying because everyone else was upset. Only Brian remained silent, staring at the renovation budget with something like awe. $190,000, more than he'd made in the past 3 years combined. I paused at the doorway, car keys in hand. Oh, and Savannah, I added, I had the locks changed last month. The key you copied won't work anymore. The last thing I heard before closing the door was a plate hitting the wall. Mom's good china. From the sound of it, at least something in that house was finally breaking besides boundaries. The walk to my car felt like a victory march through enemy territory. Behind me, the Colonial's windows glowed with the warm light of family chaos. A warmth I'd never truly been part of, just adjacent to, like a supporting actress in their drama. My phone started buzzing before I'd even turned the ignition. Mom, Dad, Savannah, even Brian, a full family assault. I switched it to silent and drove, letting muscle memory guide me through suburban streets while my mind raced ahead. The Lakehouse sat 40 minutes north. Its modern lines a stark contrast to my parents' traditional aesthetic. I designed it as my antithesis to their world, clean, intentional, mine. As I pulled into the driveway, motion sensors illuminated the facade, welcoming me home to the life I'd built. Inside, I poured a glass of wine and called Marcus, my contractor. "Kendall, everything okay? It's Sunday night. Just confirming Tuesday's start time, 7 a.m. sharp. Actually, I was going to call you. The foundation guy can start Monday if you're ready. Wants to beat the weather." "Perfect. The sooner the better." After hanging up, I walked through my house. I really looked at it. The exposed beam ceiling I'd salvaged from a demolished barn. The kitchen island I'd designed to catch morning light off the lake. The reading nook where I spent Sunday mornings with coffee and architectural digests. Every detail chosen, placed, perfected. My phone buzzed continuously on the counter. 43 missed calls, 18 text messages. I scrolled through them with clinical detachment. Mom, please call me. This is breaking my heart. Dad, your selfishness will tear this family apart. Savannah, the kids are crying. Happy now, I screenshot everything, then called my security company. Advanced Home Systems. How can we help you? This is Kendall Rain, account 45B7792. I need to upgrade my security package immediately. Of course, Ms. Rain. What level of service are you looking for? Full perimeter monitoring, camera system with cloud storage, and smart locks with tracked entry codes. Can we expedite installation? We can have a team out tomorrow for assessment. Installation within 48 hours. Do it. The wine was good. A small vineyard fine for my last client meeting. I savored it while drafting emails to my attorney and insurance company, updating them on the renovation timeline and potential access issues. Preparation was everything in architecture and family warfare alike. By 11, the calls had stopped, replaced by a different kind of message. Brian, Kendall, I know you're angry, but please reconsider. The kids don't understand. I actually laughed. Brian, suddenly finding his voice when consequences arrived. I typed back, the kids don't need to understand my home ownership. They need parents who model respect for boundaries and property rights. His response was immediate. Brian, that's cold, even for you. Cold, the family's favorite adjective for me. Cold when I went to college out of state instead of community college nearby. Cold when I worked holidays instead of attending dysfunctional gatherings. Cold when I succeeded while they stagnated. Monday morning arrived with lake fog and purpose. I was already dressed when the foundation crew arrived at 6:45, eager to begin. My architects, I appreciated their efficiency as they unloaded equipment, marked utility lines, and began the careful choreography of construction. Ms. Rain. Marcus appeared with his tablet and hard hat. Want to do a final walk before we start demo? We moved through the rooms, confirming salvage items and discussing the timeline. In what Savannah had claimed as Mason's blue room. Marcus paused. You sure about taking this down to studs? The bones are good. The electrical needs updating throughout. Better to do it right. He nodded, making notes. Your call. Oh, and the dumpster company called. They'll be here within the hour. Perfect timing. As it turned out, at 8:17, Savannah's minivan screeched into my driveway, narrowly missing the foundation crew's equipment. She emerged like an avenging suburban warrior, yoga pants and fury. What the hell is this? Monday morning, I replied calmly. I told you work started Tuesday. We are ahead of schedule. You vindictive, she stopped herself, noticing the crew's attention. We need to talk privately. I am supervising construction. Whatever you need to say can be said here. Her face flushed. Fine. The kids didn't sleep. They think they did something wrong. Mason asked if Aunt Kendall hates him. Emotional manipulation, before 9 a.m. That's efficient, even for you. It's not manipulation. It's the truth. You're punishing children for adult issues. I'm renovating my house. The fact that you promised your children something that wasn't yours to give is the adult issue here. Marcus cleared his throat. Ms. Rain. Rain, we need to start the equipment. Safety regulations. Of course, I said, turning back to Savannah. You need to move your van. It's blocking the dumpster access. I'm not moving until we settle this. As if on cue, the dumpster truck rumbled up the drive, air brakes hissing. The driver leaned out his window, assessing the situation with the weary patience of someone who'd seen property disputes before. Lady, I got 6 more deliveries today. Move it or I call the cops. Savannah's hands shook as she fumbled for her keys. This isn't over. Actually, it is. My property, my decisions. Find somewhere else to live. She peeled out, gravel spraying, nearly clipping the dumpster truck. Several workers exchanged glances, the universal look of glad that's not my family. The security team arrived at noon. Efficient and thorough, cameras at every angle, smart locks with individual codes, motion sensors that could distinguish between deer and humans. They worked around the construction crew with practiced ease. You want family members to have emergency codes? The technician asked. Ready? No, just me and my office manager. He nodded without judgment. In his line of work, family threats probably ranked high. By evening, my house was a hive of controlled destruction. Walls opened to reveal decades-old wiring, confirming my renovation timing. The security system hummed online, sending test alerts to my phone. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then Dad arrived. I watched on my new cameras as his Buick navigated the work vehicles. He emerged slowly, looking older than his 68 years, taking in the barriers, the equipment, the fundamental change happening to what he'd always dismissed as Kendall's fancy house. I met him at the door, the new smart lock that had replaced my compromised entry that afternoon. Impressive, he said, nodding at the construction. How much is all this setting you back? I told you yesterday, $190,000. He whistled low. Could have bought Savannah a house for that. Could have, didn't, won't. We stood there, father and daughter, separated by more than the threshold. Behind him, the lake caught evening light, reminding me why I'd built here, peace, beauty, distance. Your mother's beside herself. Mom's always beside herself when she doesn't get her way. That's unfair. Is it? Remember when I was accepted to Cornell? She cried for a week about me abandoning the family. Made my achievement about her loss. Ancient history. Pattern behavior, like promising Savannah my house without asking me. He shifted uncomfortably. We didn't promise. Dad, Savannah showed me the texts. Mom wrote, don't worry about the rental situation. Kendall's house has plenty of room, and family helps family. His shoulders sagged. We thought, you're there alone. All that space. It seemed logical. Logical to whom? The person paying the mortgage. The one who spent 2 years fighting town planning boards for permits. Or the people who wanted a problem solved without solving it themselves. You've grown hard, Kendall. I've grown boundaries. There's a difference. We stood in silence while an excavator rumbled past, heading home for the night. Marcus waved from his truck, and I waved back, solidarity among professionals. She's looking at apartments, Dad said finally, angry as hell, but looking good. The kids are confused. Kids are resilient. They'll adjust to whatever housing Savannah provides. You really feel nothing. No guilt at all. I thought about it. Really examined my conscience while Dad waited. I feel free, like I finally stopped subsidizing other people's choices at the expense of my own dreams. If that's cold, then yes, I'm frozen solid. He left without goodbye, his Buick's tail lights disappearing into the gathering dusk. I locked my new door, armed my new system, and stood in my construction chaos kitchen, surrounded by the skeletons of walls and the birth of something better. My phone buzzed. One new message. Savannah. Found a place. 2 bedrooms. Kids devastated. Hope your renovation is worth destroying your family. I deleted it without responding. Outside, the lake held the last light of day, and somewhere, a loon called across the water, a sound like mourning or celebration, depending on your perspective. Mine was definitely celebration. Saturday morning broke crisp and clear. Perfect moving weather. I'd been at the Lakehouse since dawn, reviewing structural plans with Marcus while the crew prepped for the next demolition phase. The security cameras had been tracking movement since 5:47 a.m., 3 vehicles parked just outside my property line. Waiting. Looks like you've got company, Marcus observed, checking his phone where I'd shared the camera feed. Family drama, nothing that should affect the work. At 8 o'clock sharp, Savannah's minivan led the procession onto my property. Behind her, Brian's brother drove a rented moving truck, followed by Dad's Buick. They moved with military precision, clearly having planned this assault down to the minute. I stepped out to meet them, hard hat in place, safety vest visible, professional, unmovable. Savannah emerged first, dressed for physical labor, in old jeans and determination. We are just dropping things in the garage temporarily, a few days while we sort the apartment situation. No, just no. The garage is part of the renovation. Demo starts there Monday. Brian's brother, Todd, had already opened the truck's rear door, revealing a Tetris puzzle of furniture, boxes, and childhood detritus. Where should we start unloading? You shouldn't, I said clearly. Nothing gets unloaded on my property. Savannah laughed, sharp and bitter. You're being ridiculous. It's just stuff, Kendall. Not like we are moving in. Turn around. Leave now, or what? You'll call the cops on your own sister. I pulled out my phone, the sheriff's number already queued if necessary. The construction crew had stopped working, sensing drama better than any reality show. Marcus stepped closer, clipboard in hand, authority in his bearing. This is an active construction site. Insurance liability issues, no unauthorized persons or property. Todd looked between us, then at Brian. Maybe we should. No, Brian interrupted, showing more spine than I'd seen in years. We have nowhere else to put this stuff. Storage units are full, and the apartment won't fit half of it. Not my problem, I said. It's never your problem, is it? Savannah's voice rose. Must be nice solving everything with money and lawyers and construction crews. She stomped toward the house, pulling out a key, the old key, the one she'd copied without permission. I watched, almost amused, as she jabbed it at my new smart lock. What the? You changed the locks like I'm some kind of criminal. You copied my key without permission. You photographed my home to plan your takeover. What would you call that? The smart lock beeped. Its camera recorded her failed attempt. Another video file for my lawyer, just in case. Kids, Savannah called toward the minivan. Come say hi to Aunt Kendall. Low blow, using them as shields. But Mason, Lily, and Luna tumbled out, excited despite the tension. They ran toward the house, then stopped short at the construction barriers. Whoa! Mason's eyes widened. What happened to your house? I'm fixing it up, I said gently, making it better. Can we see? Lily bounced on her toes. It's not safe, sweetie. Too much construction. But Mom said we could put our bikes in your garage, Luna added. Innocent confession revealing more planning. Your mom was mistaken. Savannah gathered them close. Maternal protection mode activated. Kids, Aunt Kendall is being difficult today. Go wait in the van. But I want to see the construction, Mason protested. Van now. They trudged away, shooting confused glances back. I hated being cast as the villain in their story, but not enough to cave. Todd had been pacing by the truck, phone pressed to his ear. Storage place on Route 9 has units available. Climate controlled. First month's free. We can't afford storage. Savannah snapped. Then sell some stuff. I suggested downsizing. Live within your means. Easy for you to say. You don't have kids. Responsibilities. I have responsibilities to my business, my clients, my investments. I just don't confuse responsibility with enablement. Dad finally spoke up from his position by the Buick. Kendall, be reasonable. Just the garage. A few weeks maximum. No. And if you'd listened Sunday instead of assuming compliance, you'd have made other arrangements. This is our mother's furniture. Savannah played her trump card, gesturing to the truck, Grandma's dining set, the secretary desk, things meant to stay in the family. I'd wondered when the heirlooms would surface, then offered to store them properly. Climate control, insurance, not in a construction zone. You heartless, the security system's alert cut her off. A second moving truck rumbled up the drive, not theirs. Mine. Perfect timing. What's that? Brian asked. My contractor's equipment delivery, which needs garage access. I turned to Marcus. Could you direct them? Marcus moved with practiced authority, guiding the new truck while making it clear Savannah's convoy needed to leave. The construction crew resumed work, power tools drowning out argument. Savannah made one last desperate play. She popped the minivan's hatch, revealing boxes labeled in Mom's handwriting, Kendall's baby things, school awards, family photos. At least take these, your own memories. Clever frame, rejection as rejecting my own past. Not just their present demands, but I'd learned to recognize manipulation, even wrapped in nostalgia. Those can go to the climate-controlled storage, too. I'll pay the first month if finances are the issue. It's not about money, she screamed, finally cracking. It's about you choosing renovation over family, choosing your perfect empty house over helping us. Yes, I said simply. I am choosing my life over subsidizing yours. That's what boundaries look like. Brian moved toward her, hand on her shoulder. Savannah, come on. This isn't working. She shrugged him off, mascara running, suburban armor cracking. You promised, Kendall, when we were kids, you promised we'd always take care of each other. We were children. Children make unrealistic promises. Adults recognize when care becomes exploitation. Todd had already closed the truck. Decision made. Storage place closes at noon. If we are going. The standoff stretched, Savannah vibrating with rage, while I stood calm in my hard hat and safety vest. The construction site symphony continued around us, progress despite protest. Finally, Dad moved. "Let's go, Savannah. This isn't productive." "But the furniture will fit in storage," Todd said. Todd found a place. "We'll figure out the cost." She looked between us, seeking cracks in my resolve. Finding none, she deflated like a punctured tire. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "When you're old and alone in your perfect house, you'll regret choosing things over people." "I'm choosing myself over users. There's a difference." They left in a convoy of defeat, the moving truck leading the way to whatever storage solution they'd scrambled to afford. I watched until they turned onto the main road, then exhaled deeply. "Family troubles?" Marcus asked diplomatically. "Family clarity," I corrected. "How soon can we demo that garage?" He grinned. "Crew's ready when you are." By noon, the garage bay that would have housed Savannah's overflow was stripped to concrete, ready for transformation into my planned home gym. The security footage of her failed entry attempt was backed up in triplicate. My boundaries stood firm as the new foundation. My phone buzzed with a final salvo. "Mom, your father says you turned away the heirlooms." "Those belong to all of us. I responded carefully. "Family heirlooms deserve proper care. I've offered to pay for appropriate storage." "My construction zone isn't appropriate." "Mom, storage isn't family." "Kendall, neither is entitlement, Mom." I blocked the number temporarily, needing space to think. Around me, my house surrendered its old form, making way for something better. Sometimes destruction was the first step toward real creation. The loon called again across the water, definitely celebration this time. The furniture sat like abandoned soldiers on my lawn. Morning dew making the wood gleam. Grandma's mahogany dining set. The secretary desk, claimed as from the 1920s. Boxes of what looked like photos and linens, all dumped hastily when I'd refused garage access. I discovered the scene at 6 a.m., coffee in hand. Reviewing the day's construction schedule. The security footage told the story. Savannah and Brian returning at 2:47 a.m., working silently to unload everything from the truck before fleeing. They'd even arranged the pieces artfully, perhaps hoping aesthetics would change my mind. Marcus arrived to find me photographing everything. "That's new," he said dryly. "Trespassing with heirlooms. Creative. Want my guys to move it?" "Not yet. Document first, then action." By 7 a.m., I'd catalogued every piece, noting existing damaged water rings on the dining table, scratches on the desk, boxes soft with moisture. Whatever storage they'd been in hadn't been climate controlled. I called Peterson's auction house, the firm that handled estate sales for lakefront properties. "Kendall, good to hear from you. How's the modernist beauty coming along under renovation?" "Listen, Richard. I have a situation. Family furniture abandoned on my property. What are my options?" "Abandoned as in dumped on my lawn at 3 a.m. I have security footage. They were asked to leave yesterday, and returned to unload without permission." His tone shifted to professional. "After proper notice, abandoned property can be disposed of as you see fit. Document everything. I'd suggest certified letters to establish timeline. If you wanted to auction, proceeds go to charity. We could handle that. Some of those pieces sound valuable. Want me to come assess?" "This afternoon, I'll bring the team." I hung up and called my lawyer, then the sheriff's office for an incident report. Boundaries required paperwork. Predictably, my phone exploded around 8 a.m., when Savannah discovered I hadn't rushed to shelter her abandoned treasures. "You're leaving Grandma's furniture outside." I responded calmly. You left it on my lawn. I'm handling the situation legally. That's family heritage, which you abandoned on private property after being told to leave. I've documented everything. The calls started immediately. I let them go to voicemail, focusing on the scheduled foundation work. Personal drama couldn't derail professional progress. Mom arrived at 10 a.m., Dad driving while she clutched a tissue box. They parked carefully, respecting the barriers this time. Kendall. Mom's voice wavered as she surveyed the furniture. This is too far. I agree. Dumping property at 3 a.m. is definitely too far. You know what I mean. These are family pieces. Then the family should have stored them properly, not abandoned them on my lawn like a garage sale. She moved toward the secretary desk, running her hand along its carved edge. This was my mother's. She wrote letters to my father during the war at this desk. I know the story, Mom, I said, which is why it deserved better than whatever leaking storage unit it's been in. Look at the water damage. She peered closer, seeing what I'd documented. The veneer bubbling, drawer fronts warping. Oh, I didn't know because no one checked, just like no one asked before planning to move into my house. Dad stood by the dining set, testing a chair's wobble. What's your plan here, Kendall? Peterson's auction house is coming this afternoon. I'll have them assess everything. Proceeds to charity. I was thinking the youth housing initiative. You're going to sell our family heritage. Mom's tears started fresh. I'm going to ensure abandoned property is handled legally. You want to keep the heritage. Take it now. Find proper storage. I'll even provide the auction estimate so you understand its value. We can't. Dad started, then stopped. The storage units are expensive. Yes, I agreed. Preserving valuable things costs money. That's why I spent $190,000 on my house, to preserve and improve my investment. Richard Peterson arrived at noon with his team, whistling appreciatively at both the furniture collection and the construction scope. Beautiful bones on that house, he said. Marcus does excellent work. Now about these pieces. His team worked efficiently, examining maker's marks, checking joints, photographing details. I shadowed them, learning the furniture's actual value versus family mythology. The dining set's nice, Richard concluded. 1950s reproduction, not original Victorian, as I'm guessing they believed. Maybe $3,000 at auction. And the secretary desk is better. Actual 1920s, despite the damage, could bring $5,000 to $8,000 if restored. And without restoration, half that, the water damage is significant. Mom and Dad hovered nearby, catching fragments. The reality of value versus perception was hitting hard. And the boxes? I asked. Richard's assistant had opened one carefully. Photos, documents, linens, personal items, minimal resale value, though she held up a leather journal. This appears to be wartime correspondence. Historical societies might be interested. Asterisk grandpa's letters. Asterisk the ones Mom referenced constantly, but had stored so carelessly they'd nearly disintegrated. I want those preserved properly, I said. Whatever it costs. Mom stepped forward. Those are mine by rights. Then take them. All of this right now, or I proceed with the auction house. You're giving us an ultimatum. I'm giving you choices. Take responsibility for the items, or let professionals handle them. But they are not staying on my lawn, and they are not going in my house. Savannah's minivan screeched up the drive, narrowly missing a barrier. She exploded out, Brian trailing apologetically. Don't you dare sell Grandma's things. Then remove them. You have, I checked my watch. 4 hours before they are officially abandoned property. We don't have anywhere to put them. Not my problem. You had somewhere at 3 a.m. when you dumped them. That was temporary. We thought I'd offer my garage, my house, my resources. I'd see the furniture and suddenly offer my garage, my house, my resources. Manipulation through heirlooms. Brian found his voice. We paid Todd's truck rental. We can't afford another. Should have considered that before trespassing. Richard cleared his throat diplomatically. I could recommend some storage facilities that specialize in antiques, climate-controlled, reasonable rates. We can't afford reasonable, Savannah's voice cracked. We can barely afford unreasonable. Then sell some pieces, I suggested. The dining set alone would cover a year of proper storage for the rest. Sell? You want us to break up the set? I want you to make adult decisions about property you claim to value. The standoff felt different this time. Not just about stuff, but about patterns. Generations of keeping things without caring for them. Claiming value without investing in preservation. Dad finally spoke. We'll take the desk and the letters. The rest. He looked at Mom, some silent communication passing between them. Maybe it's time to let go, Robert. Mom gasped. They are just things, Helen. We've been paying for 3 storage units for 5 years. Most of it junk. Maybe Kendall's right. Maybe it's time to choose what really matters. The shift was subtle but significant. Dad, the eternal enabler, actually setting a limit. Savannah turned on him. You're taking her side. I'm taking reality's side. We can't keep everything. We can't afford everything. And we can't force Kendall to subsidize our inability to choose. The auction team waited patiently, professionals accustomed to family drama. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness, not for the furniture, but for what it represented. Generations of accumulation without purpose, preservation without planning. 2 hours, I said finally. Decide what you're taking. Richard's team will handle the rest. I returned to the house to the clean destruction of renovation. Behind me, 3 generations of family members circled furniture like cackling birds, finally forced to decide what actually mattered versus what they'd simply inherited. The security cameras recorded it all, evidence of boundaries held, patterns broken, and the expensive cost of saying no. The youth housing initiative would benefit from whatever remained. At least someone would build a proper future from our family's poorly preserved past. The demolition of the master bedroom wall began at 7 a.m. sharp on Wednesday. I stood in my hard hat, watching decades of drywall and memories crumble. This was the room Savannah had claimed for herself, had photographed for furniture placement, had promised to Brian as the sanctuary. Now it was exposed studs and possibility. Marcus checked the structural plans against reality. Load-bearing beams in perfect condition. We can open this up completely like you wanted. Do it. The crew worked with efficient destruction, and I documented everything. Not for legal reasons this time, but for satisfaction. Each swing of the sledgehammer felt like affirmation. My phone buzzed with a notification from the security system, vehicle approaching. I checked the feed. Inside Savannah's minivan again. She parked haphazardly, and I met her at the construction barrier. Her appearance had deteriorated, hair unwashed, makeup from yesterday, the polished suburban mom facade cracking. You sold Grandma's china, she said without preamble. The auction house sold it yesterday. The buyer was thrilled. Apparently, that pattern's been discontinued for 40 years. Do you know what it went for? $1,200, I replied, already transferred to the Youth Housing Initiative. Her laugh was bitter. $1,200. We could have used that for the security deposit on a better apartment. You could have taken it when offered. You chose only the desk because Mom guilt-tripped Dad into keeping something. Behind her, I could see Mason in the van's back seat, face pressed against the window. I waved. He didn't wave back. What do you want, Savannah? To understand how you can destroy everything and feel nothing. I'm not destroying, I gestured to the construction behind me. I'm renovating. Creating something better from what exists. While we are homeless, while you're in a 2-bedroom apartment. That's not homeless, that's downsized. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to photos. Look at this place. Look what you've condemned your nephews and niece to. The images showed a standard apartment, small but clean. Kids sharing a room with bunk beds, functional if not spacious. Looks appropriate for your current income level. They had their own rooms planned at your house. Space to play, the lake to explore. None of which was yours to promise. A crash from inside made us both turn. The master bedroom's closet system, custom California closets that Savannah had definitely measured, lay in pieces on the subfloor. That's the closet I picked for my clothes, she said quietly. That's demolition debris now. Her control finally snapped. I hate you. The construction crew paused, drama sensors activating. I remained calm, having expected this explosion eventually. Okay. Okay. That's all you have to say. You're entitled to your feelings. They don't change my property rights or renovation timeline. God, you're such a, she bit off the word, eyes flicking to Mason in the van. You know what, Brian was right. We should have just moved in while you were at work. Possession is 9/10. Please tell me you didn't just admit to planning breaking and entering. Her face paled. I didn't mean, security footage catches audio at this distance, just so you know. She backed toward the van, stumbling over construction debris. You're recording everything. Your own family. Protecting my property. The fact that trespassers are related doesn't change the legal situation. This is insane. All of this, the renovation, the security, the lawyers, because you can't share. Because I won't be forced to share. There's a difference. Mason had rolled down his window. Mom, are we going? Yes, baby. She shot me one last glare. Enjoy your empty castle, Kendall. When you're old and alone, remember this moment. She peeled out for what felt like the 100th time. Gravel sprang. The crew exchanged glances and resumed work, probably grateful for their own functional families. Marcus approached with timber samples for the new beam structure. Want a review? In a minute. I stood where the master bedroom used to be, imagining Savannah's vision, her clothes in my closet, Brian's sneakers by my door, their life overtaking mine, the alternative reality she'd constructed without my participation. Now it was just space and potential. Ms. Rain. Rain. One of the younger crew members approached hesitantly. Found something in the wall. He held out a time capsule, a metal box I'd hidden during construction 5 years ago. Inside, photos from the build, my first business card, a champagne cork from the celebration dinner I'd had alone because family was too busy to drive up. Forgot this was there, I admitted. Want us to put it back when we rebuild? No, I'll make a new one. The afternoon brought more progress. The kitchen gutting began, revealing the original 1980s wallpaper under my carefully chosen backsplash. Even my house had hidden layers. Past choices buried under present ones. Richard Peterson called with auction results. The dining set went to a family from Boston. They are restoring a Victorian and wanted period-appropriate pieces. Good? They'll care for it. Your mother's letters are with the preservation specialist. Should have them digitized and properly stored within 2 weeks. Send me the bill. Already paid from auction proceeds. Plenty left for the charity. At least something positive came from the furniture fiasco. Youth housing initiative would help kids who actually needed homes, not adults who felt entitled to mine. By evening, my master suite was completely demolished. I stood in the space with a glass of wine, admiring the sunset through exposed framing. The house felt honest this way, stripped of pretense, showing its bones. My phone had been mercifully quiet since Savannah's visit. Then, at 9 p.m., an unexpected text, *Brian, she's at her mom's tonight. Kids and I are at the apartment. I wanted you to know I never agreed with the B&E idea. That was anger talking. I considered not responding. Then typed, noted. Focus on your family. Brian. Brian, Brian. Trying hard when she's fixated on what we should have. By the way. The kids don't hate you. They are just confused. They'll adjust, Brian. Yeah, we all will eventually. The conversation felt like progress. Small but significant. Brian accepting reality instead of enabling fantasy. I made a final walkthrough, checking tomorrow's demo zones. The framers would start soon, building new from old. My architects I could see the open floor plan, the improved flow, the master suite that would be mine alone. A photo from Mom appeared, the secretary desk in their cramped living room, looking oversized and out of place. Mom, we saved something. You were right about the storage units. Time to choose. I didn't respond, but I felt a shift. Not forgiveness, too early for that, but maybe the beginning of understanding. Sometimes destruction was necessary for creation. Sometimes saying no was the only way to break generational patterns. Tomorrow, the kitchen cabinets I'd chosen without committee input would be demolished. The bathroom where Savannah had planned bath time routines would be stripped bare. Every assumption about my life would be sledgehammered into debris. And from that debris, I'd build something better. Alone, by choice, by design. The loon called across the water one final time tonight. It sounded like freedom. The construction site was in full swing when my parents' Buick navigated the work trucks. 3 weeks into demolition. My house was a skeleton of its former self, walls stripped, systems exposed, potential everywhere. They emerged slowly. Mom clutching Dad's arm as they surveyed the destruction. Dear God, Mom whispered. You actually did it. I told you I would. I met them at the barrier, noting their formal clothes, church formal. What brings you here? We need to talk, Dad said, his usual bluster dampened. About the will. The nuclear option. I'd been expecting this since Sunday's confrontation. Come to the side office. I led them to Marcus' construction trailer, the only finished space on the property. Inside, blueprints covered every surface. My vision made manifest in technical drawings. Dad sat heavily in a folding chair. You forced our hand, Kendall. I've renovated my house. How does that force anything? The family's in crisis. Savannah can barely function. The children are acting out in school. Your mother cries constantly. And this is my fault because you could fix it. Mom burst out. One phone call. Let them stay here. End this nightmare. Their housing situation isn't a nightmare. It's an apartment appropriate to their income. They are cramped. They are right-sized. There's a difference. Dad pulled out documents, legal documents. I noticed. We met with Harrison. Harrison, the family lawyer who'd handled their wills for 30 years. I kept my expression neutral. We are updating our estate planning, Dad continued. Given recent events, we need to reconsider asset distribution. You're writing me out. Statement, not question. We are prioritizing family members who prioritize family. I laughed. Actually laughed. Mom flinched at the sound. When? What? When did you actually update the will? Because Savannah let slip Sunday that you did this last year. After I refused to co-sign Brian's business loan for his fourth failed venture. Dad's face winced. That's not, Harrison's secretary is married to my dentist. Small town. She mentioned last year how sad it was. Family members cutting each other off over money. I pulled out my phone, showing a screenshot. I've had 13 months to process being disinherited. This isn't news. Mom stared at Dad. You told me we just did it. Helen, you lied. Made me think we had leverage. Their bickering filled the trailer while I studied my blueprints. It doesn't matter, I interrupted. Whether last year or last week, it's your estate, your choice. You don't care. Mom seemed devastated by my calm. I cared 13 months ago. Grieved the symbolism more than the money I've made my own. But you taught me something valuable. Family love comes with price tags. I just decided to stop paying. That's not what Dad started. Isn't it? Every holiday, every birthday, every interaction has been transactional. Help Savannah or you're selfish. Give money or you're cold. Sacrifice your space or you're not really family. A knock interrupted. Marcus entered, pausing at the tension. Sorry, Ms. Rain. The inspector's here for the electrical review. Perfect timing. I stood. My parents are just leaving. Kendall, please. Mom's tears started. We are not finished discussing. We are, though. You've made your position clear. I'm out of the will unless I comply. I've made mine clear. My house, my rules. Neither position has changed. I walked them out past the exposed framing of what Savannah had claimed as her bedroom. The inspector was already documenting code compliance, focused on facts rather than feelings. This is really it, Dad asked at their car. You're choosing property over people. I'm choosing autonomy over manipulation. You're the ones making it either or. They left in silence, Mom clutching the documents they'd thought were weapons. I returned to the inspector discussing load calculations and circuit requirements, problems with actual solutions. That evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. Pastor Williams from their church, the one who'd baptized both Savannah and me. He parked carefully, respecting the construction zones. Kendall, his smile was genuine, but tired. Your parents asked me to speak with you. Let me guess. Prodigal daughter needs returning. Something like that. He surveyed the construction. Big project. Necessary project. Mind if we talk? I led him to the deck, one of the few untouched spaces. The lake spread before us, autumn colors reflecting in still water. I remember when you bought this place, he said. You were so proud. Brought your parents here first thing. They said it was too far from town, too expensive, too much for a single woman. Yet you persevered. Story of my life. He pulled out a worn Bible, and I braced for scripture-based guilt. Instead, he set it aside. I'm not here to quote verses at you, Kendall. I'm here because I'm concerned about the whole family. This situation is tearing everyone apart. The situation? I asked. You mean Savannah assuming she could move into my house without asking? I mean, the breakdown in communication that led there. Communication requires two willing parties. I've been clear about my boundaries for years. They just didn't believe me. He nodded slowly. Your sister showed me the apartment. And it's adequate, clean, safe. The children seem to be adjusting. But she's convinced it's temporary, that you'll eventually cave, as she puts it. Then she'll be disappointed. That's what worries me. He leaned forward. Kendall, I've known your family for 30 years. The patterns run deep. Your parents mistake enabling for love. Savannah mistakes entitlement for birthright. And you mistake boundaries for walls. Perhaps I'm used, or perhaps you're the first to break the cycle. We sat in silence, watching a heron fish in the shallows. The bird waited with perfect patience for the right moment to strike. They'll keep escalating, he warned. The will was just the beginning. I know. Are you prepared for that? I gestured to my fortress of construction. I'm renovating more than just my house, Pastor. He smiled sadly. Renovation is messy. Lots of debris before the rebuilding. Already knee-deep in demo. Your mother mentioned Christmas. What about it? She's planning the usual family gathering. Expects you there. Expects, not invites. Would you go if invited properly? I considered it. To their house, maybe. If boundaries were respected. But Savannah would spend the entire time guilt-tripping me in front of the kids. And if she didn't, then she wouldn't be Savannah. He stood to leave, then paused. You know, your grandmother would have understood this. Grandma, the one whose furniture just got auctioned. The one who worked 3 jobs to buy her own house during the Depression. Who never let relatives move in despite pressure. Who died with savings because she knew self-sufficiency mattered. Mom never mentions that part. Selective family history. But you're more like her than they want to admit. After he left, I sat alone on the deck processing. The family was escalating from ambush to abandonment to spiritual intervention. What next? Legal action. Media manipulation. Savannah crying to local news about her heartless sister. My phone buzzed. Brian. Pastor just left here. Savannah's planning something. Thought you should know. Me. Planning what? Brian, to find something. Brian. Not sure. She's been on the phone with someone named Melissa all day. Lots of talk about going public and showing your true colors. Melissa, Savannah's high school friend who worked at the local paper. Of course. Me, thanks for the warning. Brian, Kendall, for what it's worth, I told her to let it go. Focus on what we have, not what we think we deserve. And Brian, she threw a plate. At least it wasn't Mom's good china that was providing dormitory furniture. Now, I called my lawyer, then my public relations contact. If Savannah wanted to go public, I'd be prepared. Documentation, security footage, text messages, all the receipts of attempted manipulation. The sun set over my demolished house, painting exposed beams gold. Tomorrow, the rebuilding would begin in earnest. New foundation work, new framing, new systems for a new chapter. Whatever Savannah planned, whatever escalation came next, I'd meet it from solid ground. My ground, purchased with my money, renovated with my vision, protected by my boundaries. The war wasn't over, but I was winning. The family reconciliation dinner was scheduled for Thursday at 6 p.m. Mom had called 3 times to confirm I'd attend, her voice dripping with forced casualness. The inclusion of Pastor Williams should have been my first red flag. The second was the location, not their dining room, but the church's community hall. I arrived to find a full intervention staging. Savannah and Brian at one table, my parents at another, Pastor Williams at the head, but the real surprise was the additional guests, Mrs. Henderson from the church board, Savannah's friend Melissa, with her phone conspicuously placed for recording, and 3 other church members I vaguely recognized. An ambush disguised as dinner. Kendall, Mom rose, attempting a hug. I sidestepped. So glad you came. You said family dinner. This is a tribunal. It's concerned friends, Pastor Williams corrected gently. People who care about healing this family. I remained standing, assessing exits. Healing requires honesty about wounds. Are we discussing Savannah's trespassing? The attempted breaking and entering. She confessed to the manipulation. We are discussing forgiveness, Mrs. Rain. And family responsibility. Interesting. Who determined the agenda? Kendall, Melissa cleared her throat. I'm here as a friend. You're here as press. Is that recording? She had the grace to look embarrassed. Savannah thought if we discussed this openly. She thought public shaming would work where private manipulation failed. I pulled out my own phone. Should I call my lawyer? Make this official. There's no need for lawyers among family, Dad blustered. Tell that to whoever helped plan this ambush. Pastor Williams raised a hand for peace. Let's all sit, share a meal, talk like civilized people. I sat, but kept my coat on. 10 minutes, starting now. Savannah leaned forward immediately. I want to apologize. Plot twist. I waited. I shouldn't have assumed. Shouldn't have made plans without asking. Her voice trembled with practiced emotion. I was just so desperate. And you have so much. Stop, I held up a hand. Actual apologies don't include justifications. I'm trying. You're performing. There's a difference. Melissa's phone captured it all. Good, I thought. Let the record show who broke first. Perhaps, Pastor Williams intervened. We could focus on solutions rather than grievances. The solution exists. Savannah found appropriate housing. I'm renovating my property. Problem solved. But the family relationship remains what it's always been, transactional. Speaking of which, I opened my portfolio, pulling out documents. Since we are discussing family obligations publicly, let's be thorough. Kendall, Mom warned. I spread the papers out. $11,000 in direct financial support over 5 years, never repaid. 23 instances of emergency babysitting, usually same-day requests. 4 missed client meetings to handle family crises. 2 relationships ended because family always came first. You kept score. Mrs. Henderson, I began. I kept records. There's a difference. I turned to Melissa. Getting this local architect documents years of family financial support before setting boundaries. She stopped recording. The issue, I continued, isn't lack of forgiveness. It's lack of reciprocity. When I needed support during my business launch, where was family? When I was hospitalized with exhaustion, who visited? Silence. But when Savannah needs housing, money, babysitting, suddenly family means everything. You're twisting things, Savannah protested. I'm clarifying them with documentation. Brian shifted uncomfortably. We appreciated the help. We did. Appreciation without reciprocation is just entitlement with manners. Pastor Williams leaned back. What would restoration look like to you, Kendall? Respect for boundaries, acknowledgement of autonomy, relationships based on more than need. And the house remains my house, non-negotiable, even with family in need. Especially then, Helping isn't healing when it enables dysfunction. Savannah's mask finally slipped. You think we're dysfunctional. You planned to move into my house without asking. You trespassed at 3 a.m. You're attempting public manipulation through staged dinners. What would you call it? Desperate. Desperate people ask. Entitled people take. Melissa had resumed recording. Sensing drama. I smiled directly at her phone. For the record, I've offered assistance within boundaries, storage payment, auction proceeds to charity, financial documentation for tax purposes. All refused because the help came with limits. This isn't about money, Mom cried. No, it's about control. You can't control me through guilt anymore. So, you're escalating to public shame. We wanted reconciliation, Pastor William said quietly. You wanted capitulation. There's a difference. I stood, gathering my documents. Here's my offer. One time only. I'll pay 3 months' rent on their current apartment. Security deposit already covered. This gives them time to stabilize finances without my house being the solution. 3 months. Savannah's eyes calculated. That's $4,500. More than generous, considering the attempted trespassing. And after 3 months, you figure it out like adults do. The room erupted. Mom crying about cruelty. Dad shouting about family values. Savannah screaming that I was heartless. The church members looking scandalized. Melissa recording it all. I walked to the door, then turned back. Pastor, you asked what restoration looked like. This is me offering help with boundaries. Them rejecting it because it's not enough. The pattern repeating exactly as always. Kendall, please. Mom reached out. The offer expires when I leave this room. 3 months rent, no strings, no guilt, no further obligations. Yes or no? They all looked at Savannah. She was calculating. I could see it, take the money and keep pushing, or refuse and play the victim. We'll take it, Brian said suddenly. Thank you, Brian. We need the help, Sav. Take it. I pulled out my checkbook, writing it immediately. Cash this within 3 days or it's void. Brian took it with shaking hands. We'll pay you back. No, I said. This clears all debts, past support, future obligations. We're even. You can't just, Savannah started. I can, and I did. We're done. I looked at Pastor Williams. You asked what family healing looks like. This is what it looks like: clear boundaries, honored commitments, realistic expectations. Everything else is fantasy. The Bible says a lot about personal responsibility, too. Also about not coveting your neighbor's house. I smiled sweetly. Even if the neighbor is your sister. I left them in their staged intervention, walking out into crisp October air. My phone buzzed immediately. Brian, not Savannah. Asterisk Brian, thank you. Asterisk me. I know that wasn't easy. Asterisk Brian, use the time wisely. This is the last bailout. Asterisk me, understood. And Brian, you won't bother me about the house again. Asterisk back at my construction site. I did a walkthrough with Marcus. The framing was progressing beautifully. My vision taking shape in wood and steel. No ghost furniture from Savannah's imagination. No children's voices in rooms they'd never occupy. Just clean lines and intentional spaces. Good dinner? Marcus asked, noting my formal clothes amid construction dust. Productive dinner. 3 months of peace purchased for $4,500. He whistled low. Expensive piece. Cheap, actually, considering the alternative. My phone had 7 missed calls from Mom. 2 from Dad, none from Savannah. Melissa had texted asking for a statement. I typed back, local architect supports family within healthy boundaries. Renovations continue on schedule. Let her spin that however she wanted. I had security footage, cancelled checks, and a clear conscience. The truth didn't need embellishment. Tomorrow, the plumbing would go in, new pipes for clean water, proper flow, no leaks from old connections. Sometimes you had to tear everything down to build it right. The check would clear, the calls would eventually stop, and in 3 months, when the money ran out, they'd either sink or swim on their own. Either way, it wouldn't be my problem. The renovation continued, and so did I, boundaries intact, vision clear, foundation solid. The autumn air carried with smoke and possibility, as I reviewed finished samples with Marcus. 6 months into renovation, my house was transforming beautifully. New electrical hummed efficiently. Plumbing flowed without decades of mineral buildup. The master suite that contested space was framed exactly to my specifications. Marble for the master bath, Marcus held up samples. The Calicut is stunning, perfect. And the kitchen quartz installers come Monday. The waterfall edge on the island will be spectacular. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but local area code. Kendall, this is Principal Morrison from Lakeside Elementary. My stomach tightened. The kids' school. Is everything okay? There's been an incident. Your nephew Mason listed you as his emergency contact. His parents aren't answering their phones. I'll be right there. I left Marcus with the samples and drove to the school. Mind racing. Why was I listed as an emergency contact? And where were Savannah and Brian? At the school, I found Mason in the nurse's office, holding a bloody tissue to his nose. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Aunt Kendall. Hey, buddy, what happened? Fight at recess. This kid said we were homeless, and I pushed him, and he pushed back. The principal filled in details. Minor altercation, but parents needed to be contacted. They tried both numbers repeatedly. I can take him, I offered. Get him cleaned up. Make sure his parents know. We appreciate that. Mason speaks highly of you. In my car, Mason was unusually quiet. I stopped for ice cream against my better judgment, but his nose looked sore. Want to tell me what really happened? He stirred his chocolate chips slowly. Mom and Dad were fighting again about money. Mom didn't drive me to school. She left early. Dad's phone is shut off. Shut off. No service. He was yelling about the bill. 3 months. My rental assistance had run out exactly on schedule. And apparently, so had their ability to manage. The kid at school. What did he actually say? Mason's voice dropped. That his mom saw our family at the food bank. That we were poor now because you kicked us out of the big house. Jesus. Small town gossip reaching the playground. You know that's not what happened, right? I know you were fixing your house. Mom lied about us moving there. The clarity of children. Is that why you pushed him? No. I pushed him because he said Mom was a liar and a thief. Mom is though, isn't she? She tried to take your house. She took Grandma's furniture without asking. Hard to argue with 8-year-old logic. I drove him to the apartment, noting the eviction warning taped to their door. 30 days to pay or vacate. The 3 months had accomplished nothing except delaying the inevitable. Inside, Savannah was on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. The apartment smelled of desperation and dirty dishes. Mason, why aren't you, Kendall? She jumped up, wrapping a robe around herself. What are you doing here? School called. A fight. You didn't answer. My phone's. She gestured vaguely. Brian didn't pay the bill. Where is Brian? Job interview or bar? Pretty sure bar. Her laugh was bitter. 3 months. Right on schedule. You must be so satisfied. Where are the girls? Daycare. They let me pay weekly now. Isn't that generous? I looked around the apartment, boxes still unpacked, dishes overflowing, the secretary desk crammed in a corner, looking as out of place as Savannah herself. Mason, go clean your face properly. Put ice on your nose. He disappeared into the bathroom, leaving us alone. Don't, Savannah said immediately. Whatever lecture you're planning, save it. No lecture, just math. 3 months at $1,500 each, plus the $11,000 over 5 years, plus security deposits. That's over $20,000 in direct support. What happened? Life happened. Bills happened. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She sank back onto the couch. Brian's unemployment ran out. My hours got cut at the store. The car needs transmission work. Mason needs dental work. The girls need school clothes. Everything costs money we don't have. And the job interviews. Brian's had 6. Either overqualified or underqualified. Never just right. And you, when between school pickup and drop-off while managing 3 kids and a depressed husband. The familiar trap of excuses, always reasons, never solutions. What's your plan? Plan? She laughed harshly. Survive today. Hope tomorrow's better. Same as always. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. Well, prayers are free, unlike everything else. Mason returned, nose less swollen. Can I show Aunt Kendall my room? The room he shared with his sisters was organized chaos, his corner meticulously neat. The girls sighed an explosion of pink. He'd built a divider from cardboard boxes, creating the illusion of separate spaces. I designed it myself, he said proudly. Like you design houses. My heart cracked a little. It's very clever. You maximize the square footage. That's what you always say. Maximize the space. He'd been listening all those years, absorbing. Mom says, when you finish your house, maybe things will be different. His hope was painful to hear. Different how? Maybe you'll have room for visitors. Or maybe Mom will stop being mad, and we can come see the lake again. Would you like that, visiting the lake? Yeah, but only visiting. I don't want to live there. I heard Mom and Dad talking before about taking over. That wasn't right. No, it wasn't. But they are not bad people. Just stuck. 8 years old and already understanding what his parents couldn't. Back in the living room, Savannah was crying silently. The eviction notice lay spread on the coffee table. I can't do this again, she whispered. Another move. Another failure. The kids. What do you need? Her head snapped up. What? Not want, need. Practically speaking. Money, obviously. But also. She struggled for words, direction, purpose, something besides treading water. Progress. The first honest assessment I'd heard from her. I can't give you my house. That boundary stands, but I might have another option. I don't want your charity. Not charity, opportunity. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to emails. Remember Janet Collier? She runs the property management company for the lake community. She's looking for an assistant, part-time to start, but benefits after 90 days. I don't know anything about property management. You know about maintaining homes, scheduling, organization when you apply it. The pay isn't huge, but it's stable. Because I'll recommend you, once. My reputation opens the door. You keep it open. Hope flickered in her eyes. And Brian can't fix Brian. Only Brian can fix Brian. She nodded slowly. Call Monday for the interview. Tuesday, if you don't screw up the call. Kendall, I don't, thank me. Prove me right. Show up. Work hard. Rebuild. I wrote Janet's number down. Then added another note. Anderson's daycare has sliding scale fees. The girls qualify. That'll help with costs. You've really thought about this. I've really wanted you to succeed, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. Mason appeared with his backpack. Mom, I have homework. Right? Yes, homework. She wiped her eyes, trying to reset. Thank you for getting him. He's my nephew, despite everything that matters. I left them to their afternoon routine, such as it was. Back at my construction site, I called Janet. Kendall, how's the renovation going? Ahead of schedule. Listen, about that assistant position. I gave her the abbreviated version. Family member. Rough patch. Needs stability. Janet trusted my judgment enough to agree to an interview. But Kendall, if she flakes, then fire her. Business is business. Your family, your reputation. I know. One shot only. After hanging up, I stood in my future kitchen, imagining the completed space. The waterfall quartz would catch morning light. The professional range would host dinner parties for chosen family friends who respected boundaries, colleagues who understood ambition. My phone buzzed. Savannah called the daycare. They have openings. The fees, we can manage. Barely. Good. Kendall, why help now after everything? I thought about Mason's cardboard room divider, his acceptance of limited space, his understanding that visiting wasn't living. Because boundaries don't mean abandonment, they mean helping in ways that don't enable. This is what that looks like. I won't screw up the interview. See that you don't. The call ended with something new between us. Not warmth, exactly, but possibility. The chance to build something different from the rubble of old patterns. Marcus returned with more samples, and we spent the evening planning finishes. My house would be complete in 3 months. By then, maybe Savannah would have found her footing. Maybe not. Either way, my doors would open on my terms, for visits, not invasion. The foundation was set. Everything else could be rebuilt, even family. With proper boundaries and realistic expectations. The loon's evening call echoed across the water. Tonight, for the first time in months, it sounded like hope. March 12th arrived with spring sunshine and the scent of fresh paint. My Lakehouse renovation was complete. 9 months of destruction and rebirth culminating in this moment. The inspection had passed yesterday. Today was the reveal. I walked through each room slowly, savoring the transformation. The master suite, where Savannah had claimed squatters' rights, was now a sanctuary of calm grays and natural wood. The kitchen she'd planned to commandeer gleamed with waterfall quartz and professional appliances. Every detail reflected my vision, my choices, my life. The doorbell chimed at precisely 2 p.m. Not the family. They weren't due until the official party at 4 o'clock. This was Janet Collier, my property management friend. Kendall. Oh my God, Kendall, this is stunning. She spun in the entryway, taking in the soaring ceilings and lake views. And Savannah, I didn't expect you here early. Behind Janet, my sister stood in professional attire, pencil skirt, modest blouse, the uniform of competent assistants. 6 months into her job, she'd found her footing. I'm helping Janet with setup, Savannah explained, not quite meeting my eyes. She's been invaluable, Janet confirmed. Best assistant I've hired. Thorough, organized, never misses a detail. Savannah flushed at the praise. We hadn't spoken directly in weeks, but I tracked her progress through Janet. Punctual, reliable, professional, everything she hadn't been before consequences arrived. Where should we put the catering table? Savannah asked. All business. I directed them to the dining room, not Grandma's sold furniture, but a modern glass table that suited the space. They worked efficiently, and I found myself watching my sister navigate her new competence. The kids are excited, she said finally, adjusting napkins with unnecessary precision. Mason's been drawing house plans all week. Says he wants to be an architect. He's got the eye for it. Gets that from you. A pause. Brian's working today. Warehouse job. Not glamorous, but steady. Good. We existed in careful neutrality, sharing space without sharing wounds. Progress of a sort. By 3:30, early guests were arriving, Marcus and his crew, proud of their work. Richard from the auction house, bearing a housewarming gift. My actual friends, the ones who'd supported boundaries instead of condemning them. Then family arrived. Mom and Dad entered cautiously, as if the house might reject them. Mom clutched a plant, safe gift. No assumptions. It's beautiful, she admitted, taking in the great room. Really beautiful, Kendall. Thank you. Dad studied the construction photos. I'd framed a timeline of destruction to creation. Must have been something. Living through all this worth it. The kids burst in next, Brian trailing behind. Mason made a beeline for me. Notebook in hand. Aunt Kendall. Look, I designed a treehouse with proper support beams. I reviewed his sketches. Seriously. Good load distribution, but what about weather protection? We bent over his drawings while Lily and Luna explored cautiously. Savannah hovering like they might break something. Old habits. Girls, it's fine, I assured them. Just stay off the deck, adult space. They relaxed incrementally, and soon their laughter filled rooms that had never held children's voices. The sound wasn't invasive. It was visiting, temporary, appropriate. Tour, I offered generally. The group moved through spaces, admiring finishes and views. In the master suite, Savannah stood very still. This was where she didn't finish. Where you measured for your furniture. Yes. I was so sure. So stupidly, blindly sure. We all have our blind spots. She touched the door frame gently. It's perfect. You know, exactly what you wanted. That was the point. Downstairs, the party found its rhythm. Colleagues discussing projects. Brian actually engaging with Marcus about construction techniques. Mom chatting with Janet about grandchildren, carefully avoiding mention of housing them. I found myself on the deck watching the sunset paint the lake gold, alone but not lonely, completing my choices. Savannah joined me, maintaining careful distance. Can I ask you something? I nodded. Was it worth it? All the drama, the family rifts, the months of anger. I gestured at my house, my guests, my life. What do you think? I think you got exactly what you wanted. And you? She considered. I got what I needed. Eventually, the hard way. Usually the only way that sticks. Mason wants to shadow you sometime at your office. Would you? Summer break, 1 week. He brings lunch and takes notes. Thank you. The party continued inside, but we lingered in the spring air. Two sisters on opposite sides of a chasm, building the smallest bridge. I should check on Janet, Savannah said finally. Savannah, I called her back. You're doing well. The job, the kids, finding your footing. I'm pleased. Her smile was watery, but genuine. Boundaries, right? They work both ways. After she left, I stood alone again, surveying my domain. Inside, chosen family and blood family mingled carefully. No one assumed ownership. No one overstepped. They were guests in my home, welcome within limits. Mom appeared in the doorway. Kendall, we are heading out early morning. Thanks for coming. She hesitated. Your father and I, we've been talking about patterns, about expectations. We weren't fair to you. No, you weren't. But you weren't fair either. That spreadsheet of grievances was documentation of pattern behavior, nothing more. She sighed. Will it always be like this? Full, distant. It'll be honest. That's more than we had before. She left without hugging me, respecting the boundary I'd established through body language. Another small progress. The party wound down as darkness fell. Guests departed with compliments and congratulations. Brian actually shook my hand, thanking me for Mason's mentorship opportunity. The kids hugged me goodbye, understanding these were special visits to Aunt Kendall's special house. By 9 p.m., I was alone again. The house hummed with newness, efficient systems, clean lines, intentional spaces. I poured wine and walked through each room, remembering the great room where Savannah had announced her invasion. The kitchen where Mom had bought curtains for windows that weren't hers. The master suite where squatters' rights had been claimed on spaces I'd built, the lawn where furniture had been abandoned like guilt made manifest. All of it transformed now. Not erased. The memories remained, but rebuilt into something stronger. Something mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason, *, thank you for the party, Aunt Kendall. Your house is perfect. See you this summer. *. Then Savannah. * home safe. Kids asleep. *. Today was good. Thank you. Even Brian. Appreciate the chance with Mason. Won't let you down. I didn't respond to any of them. Some boundaries were about distance, others were about silence. Let them sit with their gratitude, uncommented upon. Outside, the loon called one final time. I raised my glass to the lake, to the house, to boundaries held despite every assault on them. The renovation was complete. The family patterns were broken, and I sat in my architectural triumph. No longer the family satellite expected to provide unconditional support, but a fixed point they could visit by invitation only. In the end, that's what boundaries looked like. Not walls that divided, but bridges with gates. I controlled the access, set the terms, decided the limits, and everyone eventually, painfully, necessarily, had learned to knock before entering. My house, my rules, my life, exactly as designed. Until next time.